the rise in global anti-Semitism after Hamas attacked Israel has the Jewish community, on full alert. In cities around the world, including right here in America, pro-Palestinian marchers continue to call for the destruction of the state of Israel.
Today, supporters of the Jewish state are taking a stand in our nation's capital. They're coming from across the country to uphold Israel and the Jewish people. CBN's Abigail Robertson has the details.
Tens of thousands of people are expected to gather at the National Mall today to show support for the state of Israel and the hostages taken on October 7th, and to stand against growing anti-Semitism around the world.
I think what's important is not what's said at the rally. What's important is how many people show up. This is a numbers game.
Organizers say there is a need for a public stand with Israel as blatant Jew hatred is rapidly rising across America. FBI Director Christopher Wray recently telling Congress that anti-Semitism is reaching historic levels in the United States.
A lot of what we are doing with this event on Tuesday is to show the world, to show America, to show Congress, and to show the White House that the vast, vast majority of Americans stand with Israel and not with these Hamas sympathizers who are dressing like terrorists and minimizing and rationalizing the terror that has befallen Israel.
People are traveling from all over the country to gather in D.C., including this group taking a bus from Regent University.
I'm really happy to be on a campus that loves Israel and that we don't have to worry about anti-Semitism or violence on our campus, that our administration is doing such a good job and taking such a clear stance on Israel.
We know that they're God's chosen people in the Bible, and so it's just important to stand for what we know is right and what's biblical.
Pro-Palestinian marches like this one in Washington, D.C. recently and on U.S. college campuses are raising concerns about the level of anti-Semitism in America.
Palestine will be free in our lifetime.
In London, hundreds of thousands of pro-Palestinian marchers are filling the streets every week. In Paris this weekend, a sign of encouragement as more than 100,000 people marched against anti-Semitism. This as Israel is facing increasing international pressure as it makes war on Hamas in Gaza after the terror group slaughtered more than 1,400 Israelis. Ahead of the D.C. rally, Christians gathered at the Israeli embassy to view unedited video of the horrific Hamas attacks on October 7th.
I came today to get insight, and I got some real insight on the ugliness, the brutality. I've heard about it, but I've now seen it firsthand, and I had to come and bear witness to it. Now I'm going to go tell everybody I can what I've learned and why it's important that we stand with Israel.
Event organizers tell CBN News they are in constant contact with law enforcement to address security concerns around today's event, adding there will be metal detectors and hundreds of police officers present. Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Well, for more on this story, joining us now from our D.C. bureau is Rabbi Penny Dunner of the Beverly Hills Synagogue. Rabbi, thank you so much for joining with us.
Thank you, Gordon. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I appreciate being on your program very, very much.
Oh, thank you for being here. Help me with this. It's like the world's been turned upside down. You would think that everyone would be solidly on the side of Israel after a horrific terrorist attack, but it doesn't seem to be the case. How did we get flipped upside down?
Well, you know that the forces of evil have a very powerful hold on the human spirit. And unless you find God, and you find God in the right way, those forces of evil will twist and distort what is so obviously true. And we know that we live in the Messianic era. We know that we're heading towards the final triumph for humanity. And in that period of time, and it's the period of time that we find ourselves in at the moment, there are going to be many people who are blinded to the truth and cannot see what is reality.
What would you tell Jewish people today? What would your advice be to them?
My advice is, fear not. We know the end of the story. The end of the story is that God is with his people and with his people's friends. And of course, we thank the Christian community and all of your viewers and all those who hold hands, stand shoulder to shoulder with Jews and with Israel. We appreciate that very much.
Are you seeing, I'll use a Christian term, a revival in the Jewish community? The phrase is, are you a practicing Jew? Are you seeing an increase in attendance at synagogue? Are you seeing an increase in the practice?
I'm hearing from all my colleagues that there is an unprecedented unity among the Jewish people. There are, of course, Jews who are on the fringes, who join forces with pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas groups, but the vast majority of Jews, as we're going to see today in Washington, are heart and soul dedicated to the safety and security of Israel and the safety and security of Jews across the world. And we're going to rally together, and we're going to come together in a great moment for God and in a great moment for humanity.
Well, you were born and raised in London. It's obvious from your accent. And London has certainly seen an incredible display of anti-Semitic demonstrations. Britain's chief rabbi said the Jewish people there are now more afraid than any time since World War II. And explain this to us. How did this happen?
I think that there are many people, Muslims, unfortunately, in the UK who have no sense of the reality of the situation on the ground in Israel. I mean, let's face it, Israel is a multicultural country. You've been there and you know that 20% of the population in Israel are Arabs, descended from those who lived in the Holy Land before the creation of the State of Israel, and they've settled there, they have lives there, they are members of the parliament, they are judges, they are doctors, and they are totally involved and integrated into the life of Israel. But Muslims living outside of Israel who've never been there are fed lies, and those lies enrage them, and they take it out on Jews because they associate anything that's negative about Israel with Jews who live in the local communities wherever they are. And they're beginning to target Jews, and that, of course, is extremely frightening. And we shouldn't think that we are immune here in the United States. Sadly, we've seen many cases of anti-Semitism, and the rise in anti-Semitic incidents in the United States is itself extremely worrying.
Do you have a message for Hamas and anyone supporting Hamas?
My message to Hamas is, you've already lost. Surrender now before things get worse, and it's time to give up your silly fight and your evil ways, and to allow matters to take course in the way that God wants them to take course. And the hostages must be released. You must relinquish your hold over the population of Gaza. You've held them captive for 16 years. Now you've got Israeli hostages and foreign hostages as well. Let them go. It's time for you to give way and allow the forces of good to take this story forward.
Well, your son is now an Israeli reservist, and he's now called up, so he is serving. And like thousands of others responding to that call, he says it's one of the most important decisions of his life. What is his response? What does the response of his generation say about the future of Israel?
He is an inspiration to us all. He was, as you know, last week we were together in Jerusalem at your studios in Jerusalem together with Chris Mitchell, and he was so inspiring. He spoke about how his life was always leading to this moment when he could defend his people and when he could be there to defend the Holy Land, the Promised Land. And there are many others. He's together with a friend, Mordechai, who came across from the United States, came back. He'd already left the army, but came back to do reserve duty for the IDF. And thousands of others from across the world are to defend. And at his age, you know, I'm not just talking about people who are serving in the army. Of course, there's many who are doing those, but there's people who have come to volunteer to pick fruits at farms which are now, they don't have the personnel to do that because many people have left or people have gone up for reserve duty. There's people across the world in colleges and on college campuses who have been fired up to do everything they can to speak up for Israel and to make sure that the truth, the narrative that is actually the positive narrative about what the future holds for Israel and for the Jewish people is being put out there. And I think that my son is just one of so many. We, of course, are proud of him as parents, but we are proud of all the many Jews and Christians of his age who know what the truth is and are willing to stand up for it.
What would you tell Christians today, and what does today's rally say? Christians that come and attend this rally to stand with Israel, to stand with the Jewish people, what would you tell them, and how is their example to the entire world?
For me, and I've said this many times before, one of the great miracles of modernity is the brotherhood between Jews and Christians. For so many centuries, Christians persecuted Jews, but since the creation of the State of Israel, there's been this coming together. We all know that we are facing a conclusion to the human story with the Messianic era almost upon us. We both, Jew and Christian, look forward to the same day, to the day when Messiah comes. And here we are today together to make sure that our voices are heard, that the voice of truth is heard, that the voice of God is heard for all to hear. And Christians and Jews coming together like this is nothing short of miraculous, as we all know, and we should celebrate that moment. And this coming together is something really, truly to be celebrated in the highest possible way.
Yeah, I encourage everyone, let's come together and let's recognize Israel. Let's stand with our Jewish brothers and sisters. It's time for us to stand, and this is our moment in our generation to do just that. Well, Rabbi Dunner, go ahead.
We're living, one more thing, we are living in a moment of history, it's of biblical proportions. And I cannot tell you how much we appreciate the Christian community who are alongside us for this moment, and how much it means to us. And we are grateful to you, all of you, those who are with us in spirit and those who are with us in person, who are going to be together with us here in Washington, D.C. Later on today. So thank you so much for your friendship, for your support, for your love, and for your devotion.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Rabbi. And thanks for joining with us. And if you want to stand with Israel, the March for Israel is this afternoon from 1 to 3 in Washington, D.C. It's called a march, but as I understand it from the Park Service, they're going to say, no, we want to keep you in one area, so it's mostly going to be a rally. But today, 1 to 3 p.m., you can watch it if you can't make it to Washington, D.C., and do realize this is a numbers game. More important than anything that's going to be said from the platform is people showing up and saying, we stand with Israel. And this is a moment, this is our moment in our generation to say, no, we stand for what is right. We stand with God's people. We stand with the nation of Israel. We stand with the Jewish people. We stand, and we're not going to be moved. We're going to be strong. We're going to be courageous, because that is what God is asking us to do. So if you want to watch, you can go to the CBN YouTube page, the CBN News Channel, or on our CBN News platform. Be part of it and say, yes, I stand with Israel.